Welcome to the Disruptive Dialogue, where we're here to foster conversations that innovate change. My name is Thomas Cotton, and I'm your host. I'm here with my good friend, my brother, Michael Upshaw. He's the founder and CEO of Above the Cloud Media and Marketing. And so we're here to talk about the back in the days. My last show, episode 1, if you didn't catch it, go back to episode 1, where I talked about the purpose and my passion. Why do I do what I do, and why is this work so important? And we're going to continue that conversation with back in the day. We're going to talk about things that happened back in the day where we had experiences and we learned, and now here we are. You run a great, successful media and marketing company. I'm able to run a nonprofit that's been around for 13 years.
Yeah.
But that's not how we started off. So let's talk about back in the day. You know,
when I was young.
Yeah.
I'm not a kid anymore.
Yeah, that part.
But one day,
I wish I was a kid again back in the day.
Yeah.
Now everybody say, I remember way back when.
I remember.
Right?
Yeah, that's a funny, thing because back in the days, right? I was actually talking to somebody about this because now, the whole celebration of 50 years of hip hop.
Right.
And I'm 49, I'll be 50 in January. And so it's like,
Little young
man,
buck.
I'm almost, I know you and hip hop was born on the same day.
Yep, same time, same era.
Right?
Like there's Thomas, there's hip hop.
But that's the thing, right? When we think about back in the day, I mean, now we're older and we see things from a different perspective, right? And so, but listening to the music that we listened to back then, listening to the different artists and, different things like that, you being from the West Coast, which is what they call the birth of gangster rap, right? You decided to become a young G.
Young G. It's funny because a lot of the stuff that we listen to, and we'll talk about that actually in our next episode about the culture of gangster rap and rap itself. But, growing up and seeing the things I saw, it made me just feel like this is just a way of life. This is how it is.
Yeah.
And then when gangster rap came on the scene, it was just like, man, they talking about real life. And I love that. So we'll get to that part later on. But when we think back in the day, how was it growing up in Detroit back in the day? Like the things that you grew up around that you didn't realize were hard times at the time because you were involved with it. It was just the way it is.
Yeah, well, one thing that stands out to me, and I actually thought about this having a grandson now, and I was planning with him and I was thinking about, man, like not being exposed to certain things like gymnastics, right? Obviously when babies are small, they're very flexible. And I was like, man, let's do some flips, and I'm playing with them and stuff like that. But I remember back in the day not having access to that.
Right.
So we would, take old dirty mattresses, drag them out to the field, bounce up and down on them like they trampolines, right? And we would do flips.
Right.
We would do backwards flips off of garages. I really think some of the greatest folks who would do gymnastics would have came out of the hood. Like I really do. I'm talking about like people doing flips on concrete, hand, no hand type stuff. And so you think about that, like being creative, right? Coming up with things, being innovative, and taking opportunities to take things that is trash, literally, right? Pull them out of the trash, pull them out of the alley, right?
What can we do with this?
And then drag it out into a field. And man, as an adult now, you're thinking about, you don't know what happened.
What was on that mattress? Why are we flipping on this mattress
man,
right here?
we flipping on some dirty mattresses, man, that, and you think about it, whether it rained, snowed, whatever.
It
didn't matter, right? Because you're just a kid having fun.
Yeah.
And so, but that's one of the things that come to mind when I think about just back in the days, not knowing that you didn't have access to certain things, right? You gave yourself access to what it is that you found. You became creative and you said, hey, and I know it's probably some people out there that can relate, no matter where you're from, right? You can relate to whatever was taking place in your neighborhood at that time when you was a kid and the things that you used. So I didn't think about not having access to that. I just thought about this is what everybody else in the neighborhood is doing, and so this is what it's about.
Creative and innovative.
There you go.
That was kind of interesting.
We took it above the cloud.
Took it above the cloud. We start to rethink life. And so the thing is, when we grew up, we just didn't know any better. We did what we wanted to have fun. My kids the other day asked me this question. It's like, Dad, what'd you do to have fun? I said, man, we stayed outside, we played, we did different things, rode our bike all over the city. there's just, and I just named a number of different things that we used to do back in the day that today they don't even get a chance to do, they don't get a chance to see. But when we start thinking about the way things have been, you know, we can go look at underserved communities now and still see the same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
Right? We can see that there are kids outside being creative, being innovative,
Yeah.
Showing resiliency to their certain situations. They're getting by and don't even realize that the stuff how they're getting by is the way it is.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And for us, you know, we got a chance to get to a point where it's like, this is the way it is, but is the way it has to be.
Yeah.
Now, the cool part about that is we never forget about where we come from.
Yeah.
Not forgetting where you come from and being able to have the skill set to still live off a budget meal if you have to, or see life in a certain way. And be grateful also that, hey, your grandson gets to probably understand what real gymnastics is, not a pissy mattress or something like that, right?
Yeah. Well, I gotta be a pissy mattress. It's like, right. He just really made me feel good. Like, might have been a COVID mattress.
I mean, scabied up mattress or something like that. the bed bug infested mattress that you didn't know about flipping on and you just having a ball, right? Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You know, it shows that no matter what life was like, that there's something deeper inside of you.
Yeah.
And so when we start thinking about the more things change, the more things remain the same. You know, a lot of times, even in the work we do, we take the mindset of what we used to do and we become creative. If I don't have a certain screw or a certain light or a certain thing that I need right then and there, I become creative.
Right.
What's a way that I can now make this work?
Yeah.
Because even the child out there that's flipping, that's doing all these things, they're not looking at Olympics. They're not looking at, I'm going to be a gymnast and a star, and they don't have all the pressure on them. What they have is creativity. The ability to move things forward in a way that allows them to have fun. To enjoy where they're at in life, to just try to make it by day to day.
No, I think that's a very good perspective, because as you were talking, I thought about something. And when you think about life growing up, right, going back to this one thing, and I think somebody actually, it might have been, who was it? I was talking to the other day and they made reference to this, but it makes sense. Remember watching Kung Fu movies?
Oh yeah. And
then you go outside, who's the number one person everybody wanted to be?
Bruce Lee.
Everybody wanted to be Bruce Lee, right?
Bruce Lee
right. So, but everybody wanted to be Bruce Lee, but the one common thing was, if you were Bruce Lee in my neighborhood, it didn't mean that you automatically won. Right. But I can remember, you know, other kids getting upset because you was beating them and they like, man, but I'm Bruce Lee. Well, fight like him.
Fight like Bruce Lee.
Because, and you think about like that and what that means when you think about it, you just roll that into today. To become somebody who fought their way through all these different situations and stuff like that, he trained, right? He put in the time. He became great because he wanted to be great. And I think it goes to, we all start at the same place, but putting in the work to sort of move forward in life to get to where we are today, right, comes from the resilience, really, if you think about it, that you had even when you was a kid that you didn't know you had, right? At some point in time, you was determined that there was something else in life that you wanted, right? And you probably took different means to get it, but at some point you learned there were other methods that would allow you to get, you know, to where you wanted to go. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that.
I mean, it's back in the day. It's like the things that caused you to grow and move forward. You know, when you start talking about resiliency, I start thinking about grit. Like in the beginning, when we are kids, we're learning grit. Our environment teaches us grit. And so even the grind mentality that people talk about starts from the grit as a kid. What is it? What's the grittiness that we have? What's the, you know, where do we start off at understanding work ethic? And, you know, a lot of times it was people, my grandparents, my grandfather especially, would take us into his little shed and be like, clean this whole shed up. And he got tools all over the place. And after you clean that up, I need you to do all this and this and stuff. So you had no choice but to do what he asked you to do. And so that taught us a level of grit and grind, you know. And so when we start thinking about back in the days, that's where our foundation is. And no matter where you come from, Anybody who comes from any part of society or life has a foundation, and this foundation is teaching you what you do today. It teaches you how to move in the access that you have today. Whether or not you stay in that same vein, that same lane of how things were, or did you grow from there? But we have this level where we start off at, and it starts back in the days.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to say though, before we shut this part of the conversation down and move into the influence of gangster rap, is back in the day we had love.
Yeah.
Where's that love today? What does that love look like? Do we grind and so much? Did we go so hard back in the days that we don't trust anybody now?
Yeah.
And the love has gone away, or has there been other influences that come in?
That's a good question. I think the other thing I would probably pair with that love is loyalty.
Right.
I remember growing up, you really don't even understand what that means when you start talking about the word love, right? But I think in the street, we sort of communicated that as loyalty, right? If you was loyal to your hood, you were loyal to your block, you was loyal to your boys, whatever, then it was like, hey, I'm not gonna tell them that's my guy, or they got my back, I got their back. And I think that's when, as the older you get and the more mature and different things that you get involved in, you start to learn the different levels of what that looks like, right? And I think even the difference between loyalty and love in this component, like I'll use the love your neighbor kind of thing. If your mom said, hey, go next door and borrow some sugar from Miss Smith, Miss Smith showed love by saying, hey, whatever I got, you got, right?
You got.
At somewhere along the way, we got away from that. Right now, we live in communities where maybe we don't experience the same thing, and some of us don't even know our neighbors, right? And so when you ask where that went, I think in certain communities it still exists, but I think as we advance in different areas of our life, sometimes we fundamentally leave things that we had growing up, and that we would leverage as opportunities to show love, because going to somebody's house where they may not have had a whole lot. Like one of the questions that you asked was, you didn't know, because it was like, hey, if I'm eating, you eating, right? If I got a meal, you got a meal, right? That's just how it was. So that was the love that was being shown from the community of, man, we share with each other, and hey, everybody looking out for one another and that kind of thing.
It's interesting. I've been having this conversation about family reunions lately, and back in the days, reunion. Boy, don't sing, because you're gonna get us canceled.
Yeah, that might be true.
People be like, "No, I don't want to hear all that." No, I'm just kidding. But back in the days when we had family reunions,
we do not own the rights to this music.
I didn't even think about that part. See, that's the media and marketing part of you. We used to show up to the family reunion and eat. We don't know where the food came from. We don't know how it got together. Someone call a family reunion. Yo, we got family reunion happening this date. Family show up, we eat. Nowadays, it's a whole to-do about a family reunion. And, who's gonna buy this? Who's gonna put this money in?
Gotta get the t-shirts.
A lot of times, we make things more complicated than what it used to be. I think life was so much more simple back then. But, there's different levels of fear that we have now, the way people live. People are foul. And, so, now that you can probably go next door and say, hey, can I borrow a cup of sugar? But they'll look at you crazy like, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? Or you may get the sugar and they hand it off to you so kindly, you'd be like, what'd you do to the sugar?
Right.
We're so suspicious of people.
Or is this actually sugar?
Is this actually sugar, or is it something else? We're jacked up as a society, right? And that doesn't matter where you go. It could be, you can have money, you can be poor, you can be rich. It doesn't matter. People are suspicious of one another. And the change in the shift of back in the day, for me, was, a lot of the times where the whole world kind of shifted, in my opinion, my world, which was gangster rap. And gangster rap came in, the way I started listening to things, it started resonating with my own personal lifestyle. And then I was like, man, outside of my world, it's just like this. So, let's remember back in the day, but we also have to understand the influence of gangster rap.